morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm sorry we're starting a little bit late, but this is a session we've been really looking forward to, and we've been preparing. Our chefs have been cooking, and we've been brewing. Now, you know how everything seems to be so very different in this post-pandemic era? Well, here's another aspect. It's about desserts. People are having tough times sleeping. There's an abundance of stress, way too much stress. There's also issues relating to human health that we are so sensitive to now, having experienced what we've all been through. And so for that is why we have come up with this concept, because in the 21st century, the definition of dessert is influenced by human health. And there's nothing more healthy than tea. We've talked about that as a beverage. But why as a dessert? Well, let me explain why, and then let me go into a practical. Gut health, the digestive health, is incredibly important today for so many reasons. One, it impacts sleep. Two, it impacts the body's ability to digest and therefore impacts the body's ability to synthesize sugars, impacts on diabetes, impacts on stress, impacts on so many different aspects, including autoimmune diseases and skin and other disorders. It's all to do with digestive health. And there's so much research out there. Please have a look and understand the complexity of gut health and why it's so very important. Now, tea is particularly important as a contributor to gut health. Why? Because of the natural goodness in tea. We've covered all of that before, so we're not going to cover it this time, but we are going to talk a little bit more about tea as a dessert. Now, there are three ways in which tea is an incredibly good dessert. Lakmal, if you can show the slide. The first is tea as tea, truly a replacement of a dessert, a 21st century dessert. But then there's tea, which is incredibly good, really fabulous, with chocolate, beautiful dessert, but also with other conventional desserts. And finally, we're going to have a look at tea, a tea-inspired dessert, that is tea in the dessert. So let's look at the first one. We're talking about tea in its pure form. So we're talking about an experience. There's so much interest and enthusiasm for taste experience. So here we have my father's 4 favorite teas, Ranwater, grown at Norelia at 6,000 feet above sea level, all the way down, covering the 4 distinctively different and unique terroirs in Sri Lanka, all the way down to sea level. Now, as a dessert, these are incredibly relevant. They are pure teas, they're all different. And why are they important? Well, simply because they help the body digest, they help the body emulsify fats, they help the digestive process by helping the body to break down and absorb what is good, whilst helping the body to combat, to push out what is not, because there's good and there's bad elements, different elements in food. But also they help the body synthesize sugars, help the body manage sugars, and therefore help the body in managing type 2 diabetes, insulin sensitivity, and so on. So that's a pure tea. Now, a pure tea is brilliant because once you've had your meal, you don't want that meal to continue in your taste buds, to continue with whether it was a delicious sweet or whether it was an incredible meat or vegetable. You don't want that taste to be continuing. You don't want that texture because it becomes unpleasant after a while. And tea is an incredibly good palate cleanser. But there's a few other reasons. And we've got 7 reasons which I want to show you. Lakmal, if we can have a look at the next. So 7 reasons why tea is a better dessert for the 21st century. Inspiration, of course, and indulgence. And the next. So first of all, tea is sugar-free. And as a drink, tea is antioxidant rich. We've been through the incredible benefits of antioxidants, ECGC, whether it's black tea or green tea or oolong. Tea has incredible human health benefits. And that includes what I mentioned in relation to digestion, but also a whole lot more. It includes cardiovascular health. It includes protection from dementia. And there's every week, virtually, there's new research coming out talking about the incredible benefits in the plant antioxidants in tea. Now we've got a poll before that. So while I'm going through the 7, We want to ask you something. If you agree that tea as a dessert would be great, tell us why. A few questions. It tastes good as a palate cleanser because it's sugar-free, because it's rich in antioxidants, or because it's calorie-free. So, okay, well, most of you think it tastes great. That's fantastic. I love that. That's brilliant. I think taste has won. Thank you. Thank you. So Gary will close the poll. Thank you. Thank you for that. So we'll get back to the 7 reasons. Okay, so sugar-free is great. Now, each of these, you have here, you have that light citrusy note. Fantastic at the end of a meal. You may say it doesn't replace cognac. Yes, it's not alcohol, but it is very close because it has complexity in a fine single origin tea. But equally, if you have had a meal that has certain intensity, perhaps you're ending your meal with a chocolate, you would go with the earthiness, with the almost bitter chocolate notes in this spectacular Yatavatta tea, and that would be in a Ceylon Supreme. If you were looking in the morning at a breakfast, and if you had bacon with your meal, fabulous pairing, wonderful way of cleansing the palate. And you know how it is. You don't want to go to work with your eggs and bacon taste and texture in your mouth. You want to cleanse the texture. And that's a beautiful thing about tea, because having these pure teas soon after a meal not only cleanses the texture, cleanses the fats, helps the body balance the sugars and so on. It's good for you, but it also leaves you completely refreshed. It is aromatic, and it is beautiful. So it's a clean palate, which is important at the beginning of any day. And why it's also important, because gut health that we talked about also influences mood. It influences so many other aspects, whether it is different types of diseases and so on. But that's for an altogether different session. And I'll be inviting Dr. Tissa Amarakon in to talk to us a little bit more about tea and health in a future session. So sugar-free, antioxidant-rich, of course it's plant-based goodness, because the antioxidants in tea, they're all plant-based. They are, the antioxidants come from the enzymes that are nurtured by sunshine, by rainfall, and whether it is the black tea, or whether it is oolong, or whether it is green tea, it is a function of Camellia sinensis. Not so much, well, not to the same extent in peppermint and in chamomile, in various other herbs which are not from Camellia sinensis, but where Camellia sinensis is concerned, realty, uniquely rich in natural goodness. So of course, reducing the risk of heart disease and stroke, lowering the risk of diabetes, and 0 calories. And there's one more. The calorie content of tea, which is wonderful news, a cup of plain tea contains almost 0 calories. A cup of tea is also equivalent to 2 servings of vegetables. And that's really good news, particularly for a person like me who's not too hot on vegetables. So yeah, if you could develop the habit of having a cup of plain tea between meals, not only does it help your body digest, but it also enhances your health in so many other ways. So helping gut health and weight loss. Now we're going to go to a different type of tea. It's pure tea, all right, it's tea, but it is tea lightly enhanced. So here we have our rose and French vanilla, one of our most popular, with bale flour. Bale flour, it's a natural Ayurvedic therapeutic beverage, which we have in Sri Lanka. It's a tradition. We have it almost, many people have it almost every week, some people every day, and it's fantastic as a detox. So why is this particular tea brilliant? Well, there are several dimensions to taste. Remember, there's the actual taste. So here we have the beautiful teas. They're pure, they're palate cleansing, they're wonderful to at the end of a meal. They're really good for your health. But here you have the added dimension, aroma. You have the rose and French vanilla combining beautifully. And so, like many foods, if you like a tea that has something a little bit different, if you prefer taste adventure that is less authentic than the pure teas here, because here, yes, you have citrus, you have woodiness, you have maltiness, you have earthiness, but here you have the addition of rose and French vanilla. Here you have the berry sensation, incredible profusion of natural berries and the flavor of raspberry and strawberry, and you've got blueberries and the tanginess of blackberry, combining brilliantly with tea. And you know the wonderful thing about tea, whether we do it for you, like in these inspirations teas, which are quite new, or whether you take some of our standard, our pure Ceylon teas and do it yourself, tea is incredibly adept at combining with different types of fruit, different types of mint and ginger, etc. And all of which, if they have natural plant-based antioxidants, what they do is they enhance the goodness that you have naturally in tea. So here, spectacular aroma. Now this is a dessert in itself. It's healthy, it's good for you, it's calorie-free, it's sugar-free, incredible. That's a beautiful drink. And it is a dessert in itself. So now we have a different type. We are going to move on to our second, that is tea inspired. This is tea dishes that are paired with different types of tea. And I think we have a poll. Gary, do we have a poll? Yeah, have you ever tried tea with food? Those of you who've attended the Dilmah School of Tea, I know you have, but yes, no, you'd like to try? I guess in most cases, it is yes. That's brilliant. And you know why? Why it's brilliant is the reason that I talked about the functional benefits, but tea has an incredible natural synergy with food. Let me give you an example. You have here some chocolate cake. It's got that rich chocolatey, it's got dark chocolate on the top. It's got the chocolatey. I'm going to try to do that without making a complete mess. You've got a fondant that has milk chocolate, but then you've got the dark chocolate, and you've got the sponge. And in this case, we're trying something different. And I'm going to try this with two teas. I'm combining this with peppermint, because I know so many of you have told us you love infusions. We have nothing against them, except make sure they're good, fresh, and carefully selected. What this mint does, it's fabulous in pairing with the flavor in the chocolate, because mint, of course, mint and chocolate, it's a match made in heaven. Now, it's beautiful in terms of its flavor, but let me take a bit more chocolate. Let me come back to our pure teas. So I've had my chocolate dessert, and I move on to a strong, dark Ceylon tea. It's spectacular. Why? The first thing that the tea does, it enhances the flavor. It brings out the chocolate. It brings out the bitterness. It highlights some of the sweetness, of course, but then it subdues it. It brings out the texture of the cake, and it enhances the character and the flavor, the appreciation of the cake. So the cake alone is beautiful, but then adding the tea enhances it. It's not just the temperature. It's across the taste. It's across the mouthfeel, the texture. And then the wonderful part is this. So now the first sip has enhanced the characteristics of this cake. And with the second sip, it's completely cleansed. And so for a chef, that's a wonderful tool, wonderful accessory, because you're now ready to serve your guest something different. They have enjoyed, appreciated, highlighted, magnified all the flavors in your first dish. You're ready to go for something different. So what we have different here is we have a muffin, we've got a panna cotta, we've got our creme brulee, and we are pairing them with different teas. Now, I think we have a guide. It's about aroma, it's about taste, it's about a palate cleanser, it's about controlling a blood sugar, that's by enhancing the body's ability to digest, but also enhancing the body's ability to manage sugars. And particularly after a meal, most people who may suffer from diabetes know that the postprandial, the next 2 hours is critical, because your body is struggling to digest and particularly to manage sugars. And so tea is particularly important. It lowers absorption of cholesterol and generally aids digestion. Pure tea presented with chocolate, for example, helps to enhance not only texture, but also flavor, and it's across temperature and so many other things. But then if you take something, for example, like we have here, our panna cotta. So you have a panna cotta, which is vanilla combined with this rose and French vanilla. You know what it does on the palate? It enhances the silkiness of the panna cotta. It brings out the flavors. The temperature of the tea is important, but also it's the polyphenols, it's the antioxidants in the tea that help push the flavor out, because tea can push as well as pull. And in fact, if you have a tea that is mismatched, so for example, if I were to, well, actually, this is an interesting experiment. I'm going to go back to our chocolate for a minute. We're going to try a high-grown tea. Got our chocolate, elegantly paired with our strong, low-grown tea. And you know why this tea is strong and has this characteristic? Because it's made in a region where there's 8 hours of sunshine. It's a combination of the sunshine, of the humidity, of the soils, of the warmth, and the short diurnal range that produces this tea intensity. Now, the same plant, Camellia sinensis, at a different elevation, in this case 6,000 feet above sea level, produces a light, bright, slightly citrusy tea. Now, trying that, extraordinary. Why? Because the light, bright, citrusy note is balanced by a little bit of oakiness, a little bit of slightly floral, and it pairs spectacularly with chocolate. Unexpected, because the rule is a stronger food, a stronger tea. But in this case, it's a contrasting pair, and it works beautifully, just like yin and yang. So now those pairings are up to you to find out, because they exist. They're not logical or not dictated by common sense, but here are a few that we've prepared for you, and we're going to be posting on the Tea Club the details of each of these. I don't want to go too long into each of these, except perhaps to mention this, which is my favorite one, before I go on to our next, and that is a creme brulee, which we present with our Italian almond. Now, here again, creme brulee is beautiful. It has that caramelly note. Combining it, the bitterness of the almond in the Italian almond tea, combining with the caramelly top of the brulee, combining with the texture is extraordinary. Again, bringing up the texture, the flavor, the character of a beautiful brulee, enhancing the texture on the top, the differentiation of the softness of the brulee itself, and the crispness, the burnt sugar on the top. It's a spectacular combination, operating across several different media. So these are a few classic varieties, few classic combinations. But now we come to something that is really classic, and that is tea and chocolate. So what I wanted to show you here is our Pure Ceylon premium tea. Some call it an everyday tea. Well, for me, it is an everyday because I have several cups of it every day. Now here we're going to combine this Lindt 75% cocoa chocolate. And from what I've been told by my colleagues, our friends at Lindt, you need to hear the snap. It's beautiful. And then with the bite, beautiful chocolate. The tea combines first, presents its warmth, enhances the flavors. As you swallow the tea, as that warmth subsides, it brings out more of the flavor of the chocolate. It enhances that roasted note, enhances the cocoa note, brings out the texture. And then finally, you come to a point where it cleanses the palate. And the same principle applies with the 65% cocoa. We've got different combinations that work with milk. Now, in this case, I love this combination because when you take a pure black tea and you combine it with a milk chocolate, you find almost a milkiness that becomes a sweet, chocolatey milk tea. It's a beautiful combination. So we can also look at something a little different. This is the tea inspiration in the food. And what this is where you add the tea into the food. Now, this is relatively easy. So we've chosen something quite simple, a macaron and a cupcake. And it's simply as easy as extracting the tea into an essence and then adding it into the, in this case, you have on the cream, onto the cupcake, or into the ganache, into the mix. You can be as creative as you like. You can put it into the almond meal if you're doing the macaron. There's so many different ways, but the simple principle is this. When we brew a normal cup of tea, we do it in a conventional way. 3 minutes for a black tea, 2 minutes for a green tea, sometimes 5 minutes if you want a really strong black tea. Well, when you're doing this, brew your tea up to 8, 9, 10 minutes. Really extract it into an essence. Take the essence and add it into your preparation. It might be into the cake itself. It might be into the cupcake itself, or it might be it might be an element. You could take the tea, you could crush it, and you could use it. For example, you could take an Earl Grey tea, and you could use it as a dusting, as an ash over the cake. There's so many different ways, and then you have the tea melting on the palate. I had a friend of mine, wonderful chef, Andrea Ferrero. He produced frozen balls of tea, super cooled, and they were like dewdrops. So as part of his dish, he presented these frozen balls of tea, which as you ate the dish, the tea dissolved, and it was beautiful. So it's only limited by your imagination. And these are two examples, spectacular. I better not try them because too much sugar isn't good. But now we come to our final aspect. And now here we have, oh, I've missed a couple of polls. My apologies. I think we have a poll. We have a poll. Have you tasted any desserts made with tea? Gary, can we have that? Yes, no, maybe. Have you tasted desserts made with tea? Or mostly yes, you would love to try. Well, I hope we can invite you to try some at our Ceylon tea trails or when you come to Sri Lanka. Brilliant, so most of you have. Well, the important thing, if you are chefs out there, when you present anything that is tea inspired, make sure that your guest can taste, can feel the texture or the aroma. I think I shared the example of this spectacular mixologist in Asia who produced this beautiful foam of Earl Grey as a floating island on his cocktail. It was spectacular. So when you talk of tea inspiration, tea is really good for human health. We talked about all of that. But when you present the tea to the guest must feel the tea at some point in that dish or drink or whatever it is. So in this case, what I'm suggesting is we've given you the rules of brewing tea, break all of them. Brew an essence, make it really strong. But the important thing is trust your judgment. Taste again. So the tea might just change the color of the icing on the cupcake, or it might add some texture. You might want to use it as an ash. Different ways, but just make sure that there is a difference when you add tea. So it's not just a reference to tea inspired on the menu, but actual tea that the guests can taste. So now we're coming back to our final part. You know, at the end of a meal, you've enjoyed good company, you've enjoyed good food. Some people increasingly are not in favor of the typical cognac. I love a good cognac, particularly an Armagnac, good Scotch whiskey too, a good malt whiskey. But I'm not advocating that because the doctor says that's too much isn't good. So this is one way that we at Dilmah recommend. Present a selection of condiments, because at the end of every meal, you like a little bit of extra adventure. You know, typically, you have your tea. Of course, you have beautiful coffees. But if you're a teetotaler, you generally get the short end of the stick. So let's present tea with a bit of style. Let's present tea with the enhancement being natural. So in this case, tea is a beautiful, natural, antioxidant-rich beverage. You wouldn't really offer processed sugar with that beautiful beverage, would you? So here's an assortment. You can have honey, you can have peppermint leaves, you can have fresh ginger. We love that stuff because it's so good for you, particularly when you got a sore throat. We are doing cinnamon, Ceylon cinnamon, fabulous, the best in the world. Cardamom, lime or lemon, whatever you wish. And if you really must, a little bit of hot milk. And that's part of presenting taste adventure, presenting something that is really beautiful, as well as an experience that is something to talk about. But this is what we do. What you should do is, maybe you might have some honey that you produce in your restaurant or in your hotel, or maybe there's a local farm that does its honey. Maybe there's mint leaves that you produce in your garden. Do that. Experiment with your lemongrass. You know, lots of these herbs are so incredibly easy to grow. If you look up come to Dilmah Conservation, we're promoting the growing of herb gardens. The world needs biodiversity. We need forests. We need lots of trees. And so we're encouraging people to build their home gardens, good for their health, but also good for the environment. And so very easy. Grow something yourself. I can't guarantee that, depending on where you live, I can't guarantee that the cinnamon and the cardamom are going to work for you, but there are alternatives. But finally, tea as a digestive. You know, tea is so good for your human health, and particularly at the end of a meal, at the end of a day, gut health is incredibly important, because one of the key things that many of us lack today is sleep. And so for sleep, good gut health is very important. So tea contributes to gut health. So at the end of that, oh, we have a poll. Sorry, I'm being advised that I'm moving a little too fast. So, do desert teas inspire you? I think that's the one. Is that it, Gary? Do desert teas inspire? Absolutely, yes. Okay, so you like the idea. That's wonderful. That's so encouraging. Brilliant. So that was an easy poll, wasn't it? It was mostly yes, and some was it not at all, or no? Maybe. Okay, fine. Well, you know, desserts should inspire everyone. So I'm glad that it was overwhelmingly a yes. So, okay, coming back to this, we're talking about the end of the meal. You're preparing to say goodbye to your guests. Maybe look at a slightly different presentation. So this is about an experience, this condiment tray for tea, but so is this. The appreciation of tea is on the eye as much as it is on the nose and the palate. And so here you have that beautiful fragrance and that light touch of ginger that comes from our inspirations, springtime oolong with ginger. It's light, so it's beautiful. It's an oolong. It's relatively low in caffeine compared to coffee and carbonated beverages. And it's a spectacular palate cleanser, but it's also going to contribute to your digestion, to your gut health, and importantly, enhance your sleep. And when your sleep is enhanced, your mood the next day is enhanced. Who wouldn't want that for your guests? Now, there's two options that we're suggesting. One is this light oolong, because lots of people like a light tea at the end of a day. And I can understand that, you know, but I have to show you my preference. Now, this, you're not going to, probably, most people aren't going to like, but it's a strong, full-bodied tea. Why? Because taste is so subjective. So for me, before going to sleep, what I need is a malty intensity. And this, that's beautiful. Pardon me. That's the way we taste the tea. And so it's an appreciation of the tea. And so because taste is subjective, it'll be great to give your guest a few suggestions. So a tea that is a black tea. Now, black tea is fully fermented, and so you have this intensity. The high-grown black tea, a little lighter, but this is an oolong. So an oolong is partially fermented. It's a very light fermentation. So you have the light body, the light color. Of course, you do get strong, darker oolongs, but this is a light oolong. On the subject of lightness, here is the Prince of Lightness. It's a Ceylon silver tips. We grow this on Craighead Estate, fanned by the wind. There's a beautiful Bernoulli effect going through the valleys there. It fans the leaf, it enhances the enzymes and the antioxidant goodness in the plants. It's a very specific plant. It's a specific. It's not a varietal like in wines, but it's a type that we produce through a process of like you would do in your garden by combining different plants. We combine a process that you have the longer buds, and so the white tea is the bud only. And so when I talk about the Prince of Lightness, it is also the Prince of Luxury. It is truly a princely tea, but it is extremely delicate. It demands perfection in brewing. Why? It is incredibly sophisticated. It is soft, it's gentle, notes of lychee, little bit touch of floral, but extremely delicate, very, very delicate. Delicate in a way that there's no food to describe it. Delicate in a way that probably the only pairing for this is a very gentle, unsweetened panna cotta, or I think one of the recommendations of my colleague Edwin was a key lime pie, but very gentle, very natural. And it's a beautiful end to a beautiful meal. And so the simple principle, colleagues and friends, is that tea is an inspired 21st century dessert, whether taken pure or taken as a pairing to dessert at the end of a meal, taken as an accompaniment to chocolate, taken as an inspiration for certain desserts, or as a digestive. Tea has relevance at a sensory level because of its taste, because of its aroma, because of its natural goodness, because of the fact that each tea has the fingerprint of nature. It is crafted, as I shared with our Ceylon silver tips, by the wind, by the sunshine, by the rainfall, by the soils. And that's a beautiful story, and that's a beautiful way to end a meal with something that is so wonderfully natural. But it is also functionally good, because gut health is something that is increasingly important, not only for control of diseases, but also for aiding sleep, ensuring that we're able to combat some of the issues like diabetes that are so prevalent today. And with that, I think we are done. So we have our final slides. We have a few things. We had a request that whatever we present, we also make available. So we put on the chais. Thank you for your suggestions. I'm sorry we can't put on the desserts online, but we have a section on our Dilmah online shop that shows, it's called School of Tea Recommends, and we have a dessert tea collection. If you want to try any of these, get online or send us an email, let us know at the Tea Club. So with that, I'm going to conclude. We have next on the 8th of April. I hope to see you there. We talk about tea around the clock. And then in May, my father, the world's most experienced tea maker, will be doing a social media takeover. Yep, you wouldn't believe it, but celebrating the handcrafted journey with the world's most experienced tea maker. So he's coming on live, and he's going to be talking to you and answering your questions. So with that, thank you very much. I'm sorry we started a little bit late, but I hope the session was useful. Tell us how we can do better next time. And if there are any questions that you would like that I missed out, post them on the club. Thank you.